we get into sort of the deal team, you have to keep in mind that this is still a third-party sale. Even though you're selling it to a trust and the employees that are the beneficiaries of that trust, it may seem, it's a friendly transaction. It's not like it's another company, but the documentation, the process, everything that goes into the implementation of an ESOP is treated exactly like a third-party sale. It has to be done at arm's length. There's got to be negotiations that are done in good faith, and I think for some sellers that go through the process, I think that they are surprised at the level of diligence, the level of documentation, and the level of detail that is needed to get some of these transactions across the finish line. But just from a team standpoint, really the ESOP team is small. Really, you have the trustee, who's the one that's making the buying and selling decisions on behalf of the trust and the employees. You have a financial advisor advising the trustee as it relates to valuation and fairness. And then you have legal counsel who's there to represent them in all the legal capacities. And then on the corporate team, you have really all the corporate advisors and shareholder advisors sort of lumped into that team. And so from the quarterback's perspective, not only are we managing sort of in this case, I'll call it our offense, but the quarterback also has to read the defense on the ESOP side and be able to understand their push points, be able to understand sort of their needs and requirements to get a deal done. And so when you sort of break this down into responsibilities, the corporate side is really driving the process. And so everything from all the scheduling, all the calls, all the things that we're doing is on a very proactive basis, and it's starting from the corporate side. And so we are responsible for, producing all the requested information. We have to provide access to management. So if there's additional requirements for diligence, if there needs to be phone calls to walk through information, we have to be available and we have to provide access to management. If there is a need to raise financing, so we talked about, the senior bank debt or the mezzanine debt. If there's a need for that, we would take on as quarterback that role to do the capital raise. And sometimes that means working with your existing bank on a one-off, or in a lot of cases, we'll do a broad-based, sort of market process where we're contacting 5 to 7 financial institutions, trying to see if they have an interest in lending into the transaction. And that may mean, you change the banking relationship, you change all the treasury. So the day-to-day operational management of the business may need to change as a result of the financing. And so if that's the case, you need to build in time to make sure that transition happens seamlessly. We're structuring the deals as we kind of outlined on earlier slides. And then we're the one that really is creating the kind of the opening term sheet or the kind of the offer letter that we want to present to the trustee, saying that, we think that the ESOP transaction from a valuation standpoint is worth X. This is sort of how we're paying for it. This is sort of the seller and note structure that we want. Here are the reps and warranties, and all the pieces that would go into definitive agreements would be part of the negotiation process. And then, corporate counsel would be there to provide and produce all the legal documentation. And so again, corporate side kind of driving process, ESOP team is reactionary, right? And so again, if you think about offense, defense, they're playing defense. And so what they are doing on their side is they're saying, okay, we're being presented all this information. We need to digest it. We need to go and do our own due diligence. And so they're going to come and we're going to host them on the corporate side. They're going to ask questions. We're going to provide them all the documentation and information that they need to do their analysis and be able to react to our offer. And so this is where the third-party sale really comes into play, is the negotiation process. And I think what we've seen over the years is that negotiation process take longer and longer. The diligence is getting more sophisticated, deeper. And so what you used to see maybe done in a month is now maybe 2 months or even 3, just depending on how far apart we are or how quickly we can turn documents and have conversations and turn a letter. And so it becomes really us managing the expectations of the seller that this is a normal part of the process. They're going to have to be able to prove that the deal is fair, that they didn't overpay and enter into a prohibitive transaction, and that they got the best deal that they could for the employees. And so that's where all really the pinch points of the deal come during that phase, because that's where on their side they're exposed from a risk standpoint. And so they're responsible for the fairness opinion. No fairness opinion, no deal. And so then after the deal, you know, the trustee team sort of stays on board, and they are the ones that perform the annual ESOP valuation, you know, so the employees can get their statements. And if there's maybe any post-deal implementation with the TPA, that type of thing, you know, they're somewhat involved in that process as well. But that sort of gives you sort of the sides of the coin. And I think if you see this, that's when you realize it's really important that the sellers have good representation on their side, because the ESOP side has good representation and is looking out for the ESOP. You need someone looking out for the company and the sellers.
Yeah, and it's important that you keep everyone engaged, right? One of the questions we had is, you know, what are the best practices to keep everyone engaged in the ESOP process? Is one is, you know, as Sean mentioned here, there are various parties. There's the trustee team and their advisory, but there's also several members of team on the corporate team. It's managing timeline, it's working towards a goal. There may be status calls that we do on a weekly basis, and as we get closer to the ending, that may be, you know, twice a week. So it's or making sure all parties are working towards the same goal, all parties are working towards a transaction in a timely manner. And it's an important role of, and that also helps minimize, you know, any distraction that management team has. Management team is continuing to run the business. They have a business to do, and we want to make sure they're focused on doing so. But also from a quarterback standpoint, is to help manage the process and keep process moving forward.